Well, hey, I am excited to kick off our summer series with you all. And you know what? Our goal for this series, our goal for the summer is just that you wouldn't have just a good summer, but just have a great summer. Because, man, summers in Winnipeg, you know what? They're good, but they are short. And, you know, we just count the days and we count the weekends, what we have left. And we just want we just want you to just make the most of your time. And not just in summer, but always. And today, what I want to talk about is actually just that, our time. Because when you actually think about our lives and you think about where our time goes, it's actually kind of mind-boggling when you actually just stop for a moment and just unpack that. What happens to our hours, our days, and our weeks. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say that you live to, let's say, 90 years of age. That if we measure 90, say if you live to 90 and we measure that not in days, but we measure that in weeks, you're going to live 4,680 weeks, okay? So I'm going to represent that here. Another pastor, Joel Thomas, had this figured out for me. So these little circles right here represent every week of your life. If you live to 90, that's 4,680 weeks of your life. Now, all of us in this room, we've already lived a bunch of these weeks. So let's just say you're 35 years old. And looking in the room, I'm being pretty generous right here. So let's just say you've already lived 35 weeks of your life, and that's what this looks like right here. Now, a lot of our life is made up of different things, and one of them is sleep. And you're gonna spend 1,038 weeks of your life sleeping. You're going to have a job, you're going to go to work, so you're going to spend 371 of those hours or those weeks working. That's at work, not to mention all the other work that you do the rest of your life, just around the house, whatever that may be. That's another 206 hours. We love to eat. We're going to spend 153 weeks of our lives eating. You're going to spend a lot of time driving in your car. That is 98 weeks of your life you're going to be spending in the car. So what you have left there, per se, is 994 weeks of your life left to do with whatever you want. Now, like I said, I'm doing this for a 35-year-old, and if you're 35, you are a millennial, so you're going to spend a ton of time on your phone, and that equals to 545 weeks of your life you're going to be on your phone. And hey, Gen X and baby boomers, you're not far behind, okay? And Gen Z, you know where you are, okay? And this is what we have left right here to do with whatever what you want with it, with your time. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because when we look at our time, we actually know it's so valuable. And the way we talk about time is we talk about it as currency, don't we? Because we say things like this when it comes to time. We say we are spending your time. We say investing your time. We even say wasting your time. And the reason why I want us to pay attention to this is because something we all know when it comes to time, we all know that we cannot save it. Listen to what A.W. Tozer wrote. He said this about time. He said, time is a resource that is non-renewable and non-transferable. You cannot store it up, slow it up, hold it up, divide it up, or give it up. You can't hoard it up or save it for any rainy day. When it's lost, it's unrecoverable. When you kill time, remember that it has no resurrection. And what he's saying is something we all know, we just don't think about. Time is always moving forward. Look at this clock right here. Look at these seconds right now. We are always moving forward. These seconds right here, you can't get these back. You can't earn them back. You can't wish them back. You just can't get these back. Our life is literally ticking away from us right now. Aren't you glad you're here? Isn't this encouraging? Some of you are like, man, if we're not getting this time back, I hope this message is good. And you know what? In our culture, in our society, even comparatively to other cultures around the world, we are so obsessed with time. We are always concerned to know what time it is, aren't we? And we have clocks and time everywhere. We have a clock in our pockets, on our watches, on our arms. There's clocks on the walls all the time. And when you lose track of time, the first question you ask is, what time is it? Yeah, I think that question, what time is it? It's probably the most asked question in our culture in the past 50 years. So for today, I want us to ask a better question as we launch into summer, because it's going to get to the root why we're so concerned with time. And the better question I want us to ask starting today is this: am I making the most of my time? If our time is so valuable, am I making the most of it? And how would I even know? Well, Ecclesiastes, in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, it gives us some incredible, amazing advice. And Ecclesiastes was written by a guy named Solomon. You may have heard of King Solomon. He was the third king of Israel after King Saul, King David, and King Solomon. And King Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, and he talks about time in about 32 different instances. Now, when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, it's kind of a different book to read because there's a struggle with this book because it can be a very misunderstood book, maybe even a depressing book. Because when Solomon's writing this book, it's kind of like he throws these doses of cynicism in here. And he's kind of like, he's like, what's the point? And let me tell you why. He's at the end of his life now. He was known as the wisest person that's ever lived. He had the most money that anybody's ever had, and he did anything you can think of on this earth. He ruled Israel when they were at their economic best. They had no wars, no famines, and they were the most prosperous culture around. And it sounds very, very, very eerily similar to our culture that we live in today. So Solomon, he had all the time in the world, he had all the money in the world, and if you want to know what life would look like without any kind of constraints, Solomon is your guy. Because he did everything, and he gets to the end of his life now, and this is what he says. And he calls himself the teacher. And he says, I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. He's like, I did anything I want. You name it. On this world, whatever you can do, I did it. I had more money than anybody else. I had more influence. I built more than anybody. And he explored everything what this planet has to offer, what this earth has to offer. One of the things he explored was he just explored sex and pleasure. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And as I read that when I was younger, I'm like, that is awesome. And I was thinking as a kid, I'm like, man, he must have loved farming to have 300 combines. Not combines, concubines. They were these mistresses that he would sleep with. And Solomon gets to the end of his life, and we're reading this. We're like, okay, Solomon, wisest person that's ever lived. Give us some advice. What have you learned when you get to the end of your life? That somebody that has done everything. And this is what he says. It's meaningless. It's meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. You're like, wait, what? Are you serious? That's what you're trying to tell us? And then he says this, he says, I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. You're like, okay. Like, well, that's not really motivating. Maybe I should just close in prayer. We just jump in front of a bus. Well, what's interesting here is Solomon is trying to draw us in here. And when you read more of what he's saying, he says a key phrase over and over and over again, and it's key to understanding what he's trying to say. And I just whizzed right by it, so we're going to read it again, and I'll point it out to you. He said this, I have seen all the things that are done, what did he say? Under the sun. That's what we named our summer series. And he uses this phrase about 29 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. And let me show you what it means. It's kind of like he's trying to bait us in here. He's trying to draw us in here. And he's saying this. He says, everything that happens here on our earth under the sun, is that it? Where one day you die, one day you're born, and another day you die? So, one day you're born, you take your first breath, you grow up, you go to school, hopefully make some few friends. You graduate, you get a job, you work hard, you buy your dream car. Eventually you have to sell it to get a minivan. You get married, or you were married. You have some kids that don't really appreciate you. And you work hard and you retire. And then you're asking yourself, I guess this is the golden years? And then you take your last breath. Is that it? See, Solomon's trying to bait us in here. And right where he has us where he wants us. He starts unpacking some incredible truths about God and how we can see that, well, how we can use the most of our time here living on this earth under the sun. And in chapter 3, he gives us 3 things that we can do. And I want to tell those 3 things that you can start doing today as we launch into summer. And I want to give you the big idea first. This is what the big idea for today is this. When you see time the way God sees time, only then will you make the most of your time. When you can see your time here on this earth, that it's not just time under the sun, but there's more to what's going on. Your time is more than what's happening here. And the first thing that Solomon would tell us to do, he would make an argument for, is to do this, is to accept the fact that God has a purpose for both the good and the bad times in your life. In other words, life is going to be full of good times. Life is going to be full of bad times. And you need to accept the fact that there's a purpose for both of those. So what would he say? Number 1, the first thing that we do is to do this, is to be present. Be present. And then he says this. He says, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There's our phrase again, under the heavens, under the sun, the same thing. And to prove his point, he gives us this list. It's the list that Sherry just read for us a moment ago. It's the same list that in 1965, the rock band The Byrds turned into a hit song, Turn, Turn, Turn. And it's like this list of what's called merisms, where it's the seasons for everything. And they're actually categorized in 2 sides. There's a positive side and a negative side. And again, he says there's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, to uproot, to laugh, to weep, to dance, to mourn. He goes on and on and on to search and to give up and to all these things, love and to hate and peace and war. And what's amazing about this list right here, when you look at it, no matter whether you're in this room, whether you're watching online, every single one of you finds yourself somewhere on this list today. For some of you, you say have somebody in your family that just had a baby, life. For some of you, you went to a funeral recently. For some of you are dancing and you're celebrating because you just graduated this past week. And others of you, you're talking about retirement. For some of you, just discovered that you have an illness. For some of you, just found out that or some of you had just found new love, and others of you are ready to give up on your relationship. For some of you, you're single and you're searching. Others of you are ready to give up. But all of us today find ourselves somewhere on this list. And the point that Solomon is trying to make is this. When you look at these 2 sides here, which side is harder to be present in? This side or this side? It's almost always harder to be present on this side. We always just try to do what we can to fast forward, to try to get our life on this side. And our culture teaches us that, and it disciples us that. So it gives us all these shortcuts and these tools, and it trains us to escape some of this stuff and just try to stay on this side right here. Do you know what our culture does? Our culture does this. Our culture treats sadness like a malfunction instead of a season. And Solomon would say to us, no. There is a time to weep. There is a time to mourn. There is a time to sit in sadness. In our culture, it says, no, we need to skip all that. And you look throughout Scripture, you look throughout the Bible, it seems like there's always inviting us to just take a season and sit in sadness and to mourn and to fast and to wait and to lament. But our culture says, no. Same day delivery. Stream it now. Get that hit of dopamine now and distract yourselves now. And it's kind of like we don't know how to lament. We don't know how to sit in sadness. What do we know how to do? We know how to distract ourselves. And Solomon's like, no, you need to be present in every season because God has a purpose for every part and every season of your life. No matter what side of that list you follow yourselves on today. Because and it's like Solomon's trying to bait us in again, because when you look at this list again, if you think about it, how much of these seasons are you actually in control of in your life? When you think about it, not much. You don't control when you're born. You don't control when somebody betrays you. You don't control when that scary phone call comes in. You don't get to control when something because of the aging process happens. See, our life is not a machine to master. It's more of a series of seasons that we move through, and our culture hates that. So given that we actually don't have a lot of control, look what Solomon says next, and I love how the Message translation puts it. He says it like this, but in the end, does it really make a difference what anyone does? Then he says, because I've seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He says, I've seen this, what's this burden? When you think about it, like if many of these things are out of our control, like again, you don't get to control when you're sick, you don't get to control when a loved one dies and you have to mourn, and when you put it that way, it's like, yeah, life does kind of seem like a burden, doesn't it? Well, Solomon has us right where he wants us because he unpacks an incredible truth about God, and this is what he says next. He says, for God, he has made everything beautiful in its time. And the Hebrew word for beautiful is this word, he's made everything appropriate. He's made everything fitting. And I think for a lot of us today, this is tough for us to hear because you're going through a really difficult season and you're asking God, why? Why am I in this season? Why is this happening to me? But God would say today, listen, if you trust me, I have a purpose for this season that you're in now too. And if that's the case, Solomon would say for us to do this next. Number 2, you need to be grateful. Be grateful. Don't waste a season of your life just because you don't understand what God is doing. Because for some of us, we are just maybe confused and we're just perplexed and we're just waiting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. For some of you, you're waiting for this season to be done. You're single and you're hoping that when you find somebody that your life will be complete. But whatever the case is, you're waiting for this season to be done. But listen, our job is not to always understand God, but it's to trust his timing. And one thing you have to understand in our hearts and our mind, when you see your life here on this earth, what happens here under the sun, that's not just it. We need to trust God. And the only way that you're going to understand this is what Solomon says next. Because this is what he says next. For God, he has also set eternity in the human heart. That there is something inside you, there's something inside me that says there's got to be more to life than this. And if you're here today and you're wondering why you're here today or why you're watching this, because it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure about this whole church thing, this whole God thing, but I know that there's something inside of you that you ask the question that says there's got to be more to life than this here on this earth under the sun. That's because you're looking at life through an earthly perspective, and God is looking at your life through a heavenly perspective. So you need to trust him, even when it doesn't make sense. And the Apostle Paul comes onto the scene, and he says, listen, you need to be grateful because God's saying there's more going on behind the scenes than you think and that you know. And he says this in Romans 8:28. And he says that we know that all things work together for good to those who love God. Now notice he doesn't say that all things are good, but he's saying that, listen, all things work together for good to those who love and trust God. So what does that mean for us? 1, be present. No matter where you are, be grateful for the season that you're in. Those are the first 2 things that we can do with our time in the season that we are in. And the third thing that we can do today, Solomon would say this, for your time, be generous with your time. In other words, invest your time in doing good and you'll be more satisfied with your time. Now, this sounds really counterintuitive, doesn't it? Like, okay, so I'm supposed to invest more my time in other people? How is that supposed to make me more satisfied with my time? Well, this is what he says. In verse 12, he says, I know, this is him at the end of his life. He's like, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. Wait, so you're telling me I'm supposed to try to be happy and do good for others? How's that supposed to help me with my time? Well, I love when what ancient wisdom when it catches up to modern science. There was a study done recently. It was done by Harvard, Yale, and the University of Pennsylvania. This wasn't a Christian study, but they came together and they realized that our culture has an issue when it comes to time and how we see our time, whereas some people don't have enough time, and other people have too much time on their hands, and the time that they do have, they're not satisfied with it. So they did this study, and they summed it all up in one sentence, and this is actually the title of the article, and they said, it was called this. It said, giving time gives you time. Now I want to read what they said. They said this: the results of our extensive study reveal a counterintuitive solution to the common problem that one does not have enough time. Our study found if you want more time, give some more of it away. When it comes to time and running out of it, the first thing people cut is doing good for others. Why? Because they need more time for themselves. Our study found this is a huge mistake. So one particular study they did, they took hundreds of people, huge sample size, and they randomly split them up into two groups. And they told one group, we just want you to take a day, and we just want you to spend it on yourself. Do whatever it is, but it has to be on yourself. So people just indulge themselves. They spa days, manicures, pedicures, everything. People just got things off their personal checklist. Anything that they did, it had to be for themselves. And then they went to the other group and they said, listen, we want you to take a day and you have to only spend it on doing good for other people. So some people just took that and they went to go work and they helped their neighbors. They went to go around, they picked up garbage. Some people just made meals for the people around them. And they whatever they did, they had to spend it on themselves. And then they brought all of these groups back after, and they did this extensive research. They wanted to see who felt like they had more time, the people who did things just for themselves or people who did good for other people. And this is what they found. I can't make this up, so I'm just going to read it. The results were clear. Regardless of how people specifically spent their self-directed time on themselves, those who spent time on others always reported feeling like they had more time than those who spent time on themselves. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And our culture, our society, it disciples us into thinking, no, you need more self-care. You need to indulge yourself more, and you need more shortcuts and more me time. But have we not noticed that we are the most comfy generation that's ever lived, yet we are the most empty feeling, the most rushed, the most anxious, and most exhausted in history? And we've all been given the same amount of time, which tells me that we don't need to expand our time, we just need to narrow our priorities. And what if we just narrowed our priorities and focused on doing good for others? Have you noticed the most fulfilled people in this world rarely are the people that devote life to themselves? And when you look at the life of Jesus, Jesus was a model of this. He spent his life on his mission here on earth, and he got interrupted all the time. And you look, sick people got in his way, and blind people were yelling at him. Crowds followed him. Kids followed him everywhere. He was interrupted all the time. But listen, people never got in the way of Jesus' agenda because people were the agenda. See, the kingdom of God runs on a paradox. The more you give your life away, the more time you give away, the more life and time you will feel like you have. So what does that mean really practically for us? I don't know. What if you just, instead of watching a Netflix show, you did some things for your neighbors? What if instead of being on social media, you just took some time and made a meal for somebody at work who was struggling? What if you were a little more generous with your time this summer and you gave some of it away, because giving time will give you time. Be generous with your time. I learned about an Australian nurse named Bronnie Ware. And Bronnie went to go work in hospice where all her patients were down to about their last 12 weeks of life. And Bronnie, over the years, Bronnie asked these patients the same question, thousands of them, and she asked them, hey, now that you're at the end of your life, tell me some of the regrets that you have. And she started compiling a list, and she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. You can buy it anywhere. And the number one regret kind of surprised me a little bit, and this is what she said. She said, the number one regrets for most of her patients was this: I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and my values, not the life others expected of me. See, many of us, we use our time the way society expects us to, the way social media expects us to. We use our time the way everyone else expects. And this has gotten way worse with screens later, and these things are like dictating what we should be doing. But listen, I'm afraid that you get to your end of your life and you're gonna say, man, I wish I did something more. And here's Solomon now at the end of his life. He's done it all. And he said, listen, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your time that you've been giving? Are you making the most of your time? And if you aren't, listen, do these 3 things. First thing you can do is be present. Be present all the time. Be grateful that for the season that you're in, and then be generous with your time, because giving time gives you time. Because when you realize that your life here under the sun isn't just under the sun, and your summer that's coming up here isn't just a collection of days, but there's more going on here. There's more at stake here. There's eternity's at stake, and what you do here matters. I love how some writers have taken the whole book of Ecclesiastes and they've essentially summed it up in one sentence, and they summed it up like this: life doesn't make sense outside of God. But when you put God first in your life, when you make him the focus, you discover how incredibly much he loves you, that he has a plan for your life, an incredible plan, that his timing is perfect. That in his perfect timing, he sent his son to die for you. Because when you see time the way God sees time, when you see time, not just life under the sun, but when you see time the way God sees time under a heavenly perspective, only then will you make the most of your time. So as we leave today, man, I hope you can be present in the season that you're in. And as hard as it is, as hard as the season you're in, know to be grateful, because God has an incredible plan for this season as well, if you let him use it. And then be generous with your time, because giving time gives you time. That's the summer I hope you have today. Let's pray. Oh man, God, as we approach this summer and just life in general, we're all in different seasons right now. Some easier than others. Some of us are laughing. Some of us are crying. Some of us are just confused. Whatever season we are in, we pray that you will just not waste it in us, that you will do a work in our hearts and minds. And you know what? It's so hard to be present, even harder to be grateful. And if we keep looking back at our past, and some of us are having regrets in how we spend our life, but I pray you'll tell us today, hey, it doesn't matter. Today is a new day. You will be with us going forward, and we'll take this day and the days to come, the summer to come and life to come, and commit it to you. And you will make our life not meaningless, but so fulfilling. Just teach us to count our days. In your name we pray. Amen.